Two children stand outside your door at night. Their voices are calm, almost polite, begging to be let in. Then you notice their eyes completely black. Are they human? Why do they want to come inside so badly? And what happens if you let them in? Welcome to Paranormal Sleep Countdown, where we count down the strangest stories until you fall asleep. So lay back, relax, and feast your ears on today's eerie topic, the black-eyed children. Story number 1. The earliest widely reported encounter with the so-called black-eyed children comes from Abilene, Texas, in the year 1996. The witness was a man named Brian Bethel, a respected journalist in his community. His story would later spread across early paranormal message boards, shaping the entire legend that followed. What Brian described that night was not a fleeting shadow or an ambiguous light in the sky, but two very real, very physical children who approached him in a deserted parking lot. It was late evening. The sun had already set, leaving the small city of Abilene wrapped in that quiet stillness that settles over smaller towns after dark. Brian had driven out to a strip mall to pay his internet bill, a detail that dates the story back to a time when such errands had to be done in person, long before online banking. He parked near a movie theater, the marquee glowing faintly against the dusk. Sitting in his car, writing out a check by the dim interior light, Brian felt a presence outside his window. Looking up, he saw two boys standing very close, as if they had appeared without sound. The boys were ordinary in appearance, at least at first glance. One, the older of the two, seemed around 12 or 13. The other was younger, perhaps 9. They were both dressed in simple clothes, hoodies, and jeans. Nothing remarkable, though Brian later recalled that their style of dress felt slightly outdated, even for the mid-90s. The older boy did the talking. He said they wanted to see a movie, but had left their money at home. Would Brian give them a ride? They promised it would only take a few minutes. Brian described feeling a sudden, inexplicable terror. It wasn't that the children looked dangerous. Their words were polite, calm, even rehearsed, and yet every instinct inside him told him that something was wrong. He noticed details that heightened this unease, how the older boy seemed too confident, too persuasive for his age, how the younger one remained silent, staring downward. And then, as Brian's eyes adjusted to the dim light, he realized the truth. Their eyes were completely black, not dark brown, not shadowed, entirely black. Pupil, iris, sclera, all swallowed in darkness. Brian's heart raced. He struggled to think clearly. The older boy continued speaking, his voice calm, his words strangely formal. He said things like, "We're just two little kids. We don't have a gun." The phrasing struck Brian as odd, even menacing, though it was delivered without inflection. The boy insisted they needed permission to come inside the car, repeating, "It won't take long. We're just kids. We can't come in unless you say it's okay." The insistence, coupled with those black, inhuman eyes, filled Brian with dread. He reached for the gear shift, his instincts urging him to leave. As he put the car into motion, the older boy's calm tone shifted. His voice grew sharper, almost commanding. "We can't come in unless you tell us it's okay. Let us in." Brian pulled away quickly, his hands shaking on the wheel. In the rearview mirror, he saw the boys still standing there in the parking lot, watching him as he fled. When he glanced back again moments later, they were gone. No footsteps, no sign of them leaving, just the empty night. Later, Brian shared his story in an email to friends, unsure of what he had truly experienced. That email spread to paranormal communities, where it was archived, retold, and dissected. Skeptics called it a trick of the light, a misremembered encounter with ordinary teenagers. Believers insisted it was something else, a glimpse into a phenomenon that others, too, had quietly endured. From that point forward, the legend of the black-eyed children began to grow. Dozens of people came forward with eerily similar accounts. Children appearing late at night, asking for entry, always polite, always insistent, and always with those same black, endless eyes. The Brian Bethel case remains the most cited and foundational report of the black-eyed children. Whether one accepts it as truth or regards it as folklore, its details are remarkably consistent with the stories that would follow: the strange request for permission, the outdated manner of speech, the overwhelming sense of dread. It is here, in Abilene, Texas, on an ordinary night in 1996, that the legend first took root, a legend that continues to unsettle to this day. Story number 2. The second report comes from rural Vermont, shared with paranormal researcher David Weatherly, whose 2012 book Black-Eyed Children gathered many of the earliest and most detailed accounts. This case involved a woman living alone in a cabin on the outskirts of town. It was late at night, and the woods surrounding her home were still, the kind of deep silence that can make even the faintest noise carry. She was woken by a gentle, deliberate knocking at her front door. When she opened the door, she found 2 children standing on her porch. One was a boy, the other a girl, both dressed in outdated winter clothing, coats and boots that looked several decades out of style. Their heads were lowered, their hair shadowing their faces. They spoke softly, almost in unison, asking to come inside. They said they needed to use the phone. They were lost. They were cold. At first, the woman's instincts as a mother tugged at her. She nearly stepped aside to let them in, but then she noticed their eyes. When the girl looked up, her face pale in the porch light, her eyes were entirely black. The boys were the same. No whites, no iris, only darkness. The woman froze. An unease welled in her chest. Not the kind of fear born from danger, but a primal sense that something was deeply unnatural. She later recalled that her body seemed to reject them, as though every fiber of her being was telling her not to let them enter. She hesitated, and as she did, the children grew more insistent. Their voices remained calm, but the repetition of their words felt rehearsed, as though they were reciting lines from memory. "We can't come in unless you invite us." The phrasing struck her as odd and unsettling. Why would children say such a thing? Their tone carried no urgency, no emotion, only a flat persistence. Summoning her courage, the woman closed the door firmly and locked it. She waited inside, listening. For several minutes, she could hear the faint sound of movement on the porch, but when she finally looked out again, the children were gone. No footprints in the snow, no sign of where they had gone, just the empty porch and the stillness of the Vermont night. Later, when she shared her story with Weatherly, she admitted that she still struggled with it. On the one hand, she could not deny what she saw. 2 children with eyes darker than night, speaking with strange, emotionless voices. On the other hand, she wondered if her mind had conjured something impossible, a dream she had mistaken for reality, and yet her memory of their presence remained vivid years later. The Vermont woman's account highlights many of the themes that recur in Black-Eyed Children reports: the knocking at night, the insistence on permission, the outdated clothing, and the overwhelming sense of dread. It is these similarities across time, across distance, that make the phenomenon so difficult to dismiss as coincidence. In 2009, The magazine, Strange But True, published a letter from a U.S. Marine stationed in North Carolina. He claimed to have encountered black-eyed children late at night while staying in base housing. His account was brief, but chilling, and has since circulated widely among paranormal researchers. The Marine was alone in his quarters when he heard knocking on the door. Opening it, he found two children standing outside, both dressed in hoodies. They asked to come inside, saying they needed to use the phone. At first he thought they were dependents, the children of other families on the base, but then he noticed their eyes, completely black, unblinking. He felt a wave of fear, unlike anything he had experienced, even in combat training. He quickly slammed the door, his instincts overpowering any rational thought. Moments later, he peered through the blinds. The children were gone. He searched outside but found no one. Shaken, he later reported the encounter in a letter, unsure if others had seen anything similar. He concluded only that the fear he felt was unlike anything natural. For a Marine trained to face threats directly, the encounter remained deeply unsettling. The stories of black-eyed children are many, whispered on forums, written in books, told across decades. From Brian Bethel's '96 encounter in Texas to anonymous reports from gas stations, hotels, and lonely homes, the details remain strangely consistent. Always children, always polite, always asking for permission, always those eyes, whether folklore, collective imagination, or something beyond our understanding, they linger at the edge of belief. Perhaps the true terror lies not in what they are, but in the thought that, one night, you may hear a knock at your own door. This has been Paranormal Sleep Countdown. Until next time, rest easy.